The driving force of this at the very top, it's not Charlie Kirk. It's not worrying about instigations of violence. It's Trump, and who doesn't like anybody who has ever been critical of Trump. And it's that at the end of the day. And so they are going to target those folks, and they're going to use this as a reason to do so.
If you don't believe me, here's a clip of Trump saying that exact thing yesterday about how their whole shebang is to hit Trump and they shouldn't have a license if they do that. Here it is.
I read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. I get 97% negative, and yet I won it easily. I won all 7 swing states, popular, I won everything. And if they're 97% against, they give me only bad publicity or press. They're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away. It will be up to Brendan Carr.
I think there's some obvious things about state TV, censorship, all of that. And we're going to get there in a minute. Let me play you a clip, though, of Brendan Carr, just so you all can hear Brendan Carr, the FCC chief, saying all the things that Dan just recounted. So here's Brendan Carr talking about how Kimmel should donate to TPUSA, and it's reasonable for him to be taken off the air. Here he is.
According to the New York Times, late Wednesday, I'm just quoting here, Sinclair, another owner of many local TV stations, said that it would also suspend Mr. Kimmel's program and called on Mr. Kimmel to apologize and make a meaningful personal donation to Mr. Kirk's family and the activist political group Turning Point USA. Do you think that's an appropriate remedy of the situation?
I think Sinclair has every right to call for that. Again, Sinclair affiliates with Disney. They take Disney contract. They have a contractual relationship with Disney, and that's between the two of them to figure out, what's going to make sense to make both of them comfortable with the relationship going forward. But again, over the years, it would be unthinkable for Sinclair, for Nexstar, for local TV stations to actually say, you know what? We're not going to take this particular programming that's coming out of New York and Hollywood and send it to Pennsylvania and Utah. And so the idea that local broadcasters feel like they can push back, I think that's a much, much healthier dynamic for the country right now.
Now, in a vacuum, you might think, okay, well, yeah, I guess maybe it's reasonable if the public interest and the people in Pennsylvania and the people in Arkansas don't want to hear Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, usually that's something that is decided by those companies. The problem is there are things behind the scenes that would point to the fact that this is not simply about ratings and if people want to hear Jimmy Kimmel or not. Are people listening, watching? Is he popular enough for this to be a good business decision? This is not a free market, laissez-faire context. And here is the proof. Here's Brian Stelter on CNN.
Nexstar already owns lots of TV stations. It wants to merge with Tegna, which owns lots of other stations. In order to do that, it needs Brendan Carr, the FCC chair's permission, and it actually needs the FCC to change the regulations entirely about how many stations an individual company can own. So Nexstar has all of this pending business before the government. Tegna also does, and there's another big station owner called Sinclair that also has business pending before the government. So what do we know tonight? We know that both Nexstar and Sinclair called up ABC this afternoon, complained about Kimmel, and said they were yanking the show off their stations. ABC subsequently yanked the show nationwide. So we know that 2 major TV station owners, both of which need to curry favor with the Trump administration, were the ones that most loudly and vocally condemned Kimmel and said they were going to not air the show tonight and in the coming nights. It's an Occam's razor situation. It's exactly what it looks like.
Just to make this point even more clear, Dan, I really appreciated a post by the Space Gal, who, if you don't know the Space Gal and you think that's a silly name, is an MIT trained scientist and a great public scholar. September 16th, as you say, Dan, Kimmel makes the joke. On September 17th, in the morning, Brendan Carr threatens FCC legal action. It's only later that day that Nexstar and Sinclair decide they're going to pull Jimmy Kimmel off of the air. Then ABC takes him down from the entire network. As Brian Stelter said, this is not simply a matter of like they decided this was best for their viewers and their business. There's 2 things at play: a pending merger and Donald Trump saying they're too mean to me, so they shouldn't be allowed to be on TV. Now, I want to make a point, and I'll get your thoughts on this. I, as usual, Dan, just because I love all of you, and I do this because I love all of you, I spent a lot of time on right-wing Twitter this week. And Twitter is basically all right-wing at this point, because that's what Twitter is. But I really intentionally listened and tried to dig up the things on Twitter that people were saying about Kimmel getting fired. Here is the basic sentiment from those folks. Kimmel deserved it. And they give two examples. Roseanne Barr was fired from a popular ABC show when she made racist remarks. And Gina Carano from The Mandalorian was fired because she likened Republicans to the Jews during the Third Reich. Now, Gina Carano's lawsuit was settled. She sued, and she settled that with George Lucas and that whole thing. Roseanne Barr was fired during the first Trump presidency. Let's just get it clear. It was not during Biden. It was 2018, everyone. So I'm getting ready. If you're going to take anything away from today, here's what you're going to say to Uncle Ron this week. Uncle Ron at your barbecue, at your work, wherever you find your Uncle Ron's is this. You ready, y'all? When celebrities and public figures make remarks that are racist, out of bounds, not okay, if they do not align with public interest or values of the company, and they are fired, that is not a free speech issue. That is a business decision on the part of ABC or Disney, because they're like, if we let this person on our show anymore, our shows are going to be unpopular because so many people dislike racism or comparing folks to the Jews during the Holocaust. It's just, this is not good. I don't think that is a free speech issue. Do you all remember, like if you're old like me and Dan, when Kramer from Seinfeld gave a stand-up show and there was a black man in the audience who was kind of semi-heckling him, and he talked about a noose and a lynching? And basically, Kramer from Seinfeld was like not able to find jobs in Hollywood after that for a long time. Was that a censoring of free speech? I don't think it was. I think it was whoever was going to hire him say, I can't hire you because you're on video making lynching and N-word remarks to black people. So why is this different? Why is Jimmy Kimmel different? It's different for the two reasons we just mentioned 5 minutes ago. A, it seems to be about a set of networks needing the approval of the FCC for a merger that goes against the current rules of the FCC itself. They basically want to monopolize a certain corner of the market. And the president of the United States saying, they say mean things about me, therefore they should be fired. They should not have a license. That's not free speech. Why? Because of that quote you said. We, the government, are going to force the public interest. So I'm sorry, this is a matter of free speech because it's not about business. It's not about dollars. It's not about ratings. It's not about revenue. It's about the government is threatening us, so we better comply. Do you see how the two are different? One is about the government is threatening us to comply or else we can do this the easy way or the hard way, a direct quote from Brendan Carr, or it is, in the case of Roseanne, in the case of Kramer from Seinfeld, in the case of Gina Carano, it is we need to fire this person because what they said is beyond our values as a company, and we kind of think people won't buy our products if we employ racists. So we're going to fire them. It's not that they lost their free speech in America. It's just that we're not going to employ them for things they said, even though the government gives them the right to say them. In the Jimmy Kimmel case, the government is saying, you don't have the right to say that. We're going to pull your license or else. Is my distinction valid? Does that make sense? Does that hold up? Other thoughts on this whole case?
I think the distinction is valid. I think it gets murky. It does get messy. Like the Carano case shows this, that, it gets messy and there's a reason why there was a court settlement and we don't know all the details of that and whether she was.
But like two private parties, I don't think the government was involved there. It was just, George Lucas and
So there can be, but so Kimmel was not preempted. He has not been fired. He hasn't been and I think from the business side, that is an important distinction because presumably he's still getting paid and whatever. They're like, we're not going to air your show, but they probably haven't done anything that he can kind of take action on right now. I don't know the details of that, but there wasn't a public outcry. This was not, oh my God, our ratings fell through the floor, or we've gotten like 1 million social media posts, or we, whatever, we've got to figure out what to do about this, or we think that's going to happen. It was preemptive statements by the government in public, threatening action against them if they didn't punish Kimmel for saying something that they don't like. And it was politically orchestrated explicitly with this ridiculous veneer of deniability that no, they never contacted us. No, they just went on like public platforms and said what they were going to do so that you would be scared enough to do it. And then they could say that they never told you to do it, so you did it freely or whatever.